Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a very simple card, almost clean and simple. You know, as close as I generally get to clean and simple. Those that are familiar know. I love clean and simple, love the look of it. I struggle with it. I prefer to throw everything at my cards. But this is for this week's Color Throwdown Challenge, which also, if for those that haven't followed me for a long time, it is a weekly challenge. There's like a group of us. There's a new color combo every single week. We rotate the hosts and everyone can just play along. It's just for fun. There's no other reason. It's just for fun, just to think outside the box. So I am behind as of filming this intro because I couldn't get my video up on time. So this one, by the time the video goes up, might not be open to play, to create with anymore. However, I'll still have a link to it in my blog post, of course, and that'll be linked directly below the video. And you can check it out for inspiration. There's a new one every single week. Every Wednesday, there's a new challenge. And yeah, I love it because it does get me thinking outside the box, gets me thinking in color combos that I just normally either wouldn't think of or just, yeah. So this one was white, craft, and red. And I was like, it took me a minute, but I did add a little bit of green for the leaves. And I pulled out this I've used this in a couple videos, the Plentiful Petals die set from Simon Says Stamp. And die cut color cardstock, white cardstock, and then added some definition to them with ink blending. Really simple. It's an easy way to kind of zhuzh up your die cuts so that they're not flat. Again, I've done either way, just using solid cardstock or using markers on solid cardstock, ink blending, etc. It's just a fun way to give them like a different look, a bit more dimension, texture, that sort of a thing. So if you keep watching, I'll show you guys how I made this card. So I did my background first, and for that I have some white cardstock and the Rainbow Splash Cascading Hearts embossing folder. And sprayed my cardstock with water. That just helps soften the paper fibers. You get a better impression and less chance of cracking, although these folders aren't super deep, like they're not like the 3D folders from Simon Says Stamp. So with these folders, because they're not as thick, the sandwich that works for me and my EMPRESS machine is one clear cutting plate, a cardstock shim, the metal shim, the magnet, and then the folder with the cardstock in it. Perfection. I showed this in another recent video, and I think it was this exact same embossing folder. One of them, anyway. But yeah, I figured that out and love it. Love that for me, that, I'm figuring things out on my own. Anyway, I did the background and then set that aside. And then I just die cut scraps of cardstock using the Plentiful Petals wafer die that I showed in the intro. And did red cardstock, obviously, with these little blooms. I don't know what it is about. I love them. I love the shape of them. And to give them some more definition, I'm using a couple different shades of Pawsitively saturated inks. Specifically, I'm starting with Sangria, and then I'm going to use Cabernet. And, these are very, deeper kind of muted reds. But like always, how they look now, these will soften quite a bit and dry back quite a bit. So depending on the look you're going for, especially if you have a very specific look in mind, if you're ink blending, that sort of a thing, do what you want to do and then set them aside and then come back to them later. Like, let them really fully dry. I'm just aware, that these do dry back. So what you're seeing right now and how kind of intense it is, it's much softer on the finished card. And I'm fine with that. If I wanted it to be even deeper, I would actually go in maybe with the mocha color or even black and, just add a little bit, but I like them as they were. And then for the leaves, I die cut the leaf from that same set with one of my go-to greens is just Simon's Green Leaf cardstock. And for that, I'm using Field ink. And I'll actually put them side by side so you can see what a huge difference it makes just adding a bit of ink to a die cut. How it just, all that depth, isn't that crazy? I love it. And it's so simple. I'm also just using my little Waffle flower shader brushes, the 0 Plus, which is the teeny tiny one, and the 1 Plus, which is one I'm using right now, which is the medium-sized one. They're both small. I like these brushes. Like, I just pick up the ink, drag it along, go on to the next thing, and we're good to go. So added that green ink. And then for the white florals, because I die cut scraps of white cardstock with the other portions of that wafer die, I'm adding latte ink very, very lightly with that tiny little 0+ brush. Just very subtle, you know, because it'll give it that extra little something. I've talked about this before when you're dealing with like white die cuts or just white space on images. Adding shading really helps give it that little extra something, brings it to life, etc. And with these, it just gives it that little extra something. So I just kind of dragged the color, that latte color, with a very light hand, you know, kind of from the center area out, and then from the, you know, where the petals kind of join on these. That's kind of the fun thing too about die sets like this. I was like, where the flowers are kind of like whimsical, they're not specific, and even if they are, again, do whatever you want, you know, have fun with it. Use whatever colors you want. Try not to overthink it. And as always, do as I say, not as I do. Because I talk about like not overthinking. Trust me, I overthink everything. But just try to have fun with it. So the centers I die cut from Neenah Desert Storm cardstock and added a little mocha ink to those, you know, liven it up a bit. And then to adhere them, I just did what I've shown in a million videos. I just stuck little pieces of washi tape behind them and then press the little centers in, and we're good to go. Because I like adhering everything, as you guys can see, like separately, because then that gives me more freedom to, you know, move them around, which I'm going to show, you know, and figure out where I want them, etc. So I stuck the centers with washi tape. These little red ones I just adhered together with my craft tacky glue. You can adhere them together like this, or you could just leave them as is, because all the pieces have that, you know, piercing detail and whatnot on them. So again, it's just one of those sets where you kind of have your own personal preference as to how you want to adhere them, assemble them, etc. So I cut down my background to be, well, 3 3/4 by 5, like smaller than an A2 card front. I pulled out the one of my oldie but goodie favorites, the Nested Round Hearts die set, and I die cut a scrap of Neenah Desert Storm with that. And then I kept this in the video. I've talked about this many times. Like, arranging florals is not my forte. I really struggle with it. I'm getting better though. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Because I genuinely, like, you guys have no idea, you know, because I edit down my videos and a lot of times like my head's in the way or I'm knocking things over, that sort of thing. But I did this little arrangement and I was like, oh, I did that. Look, go me. And I was really happy with it. So after I arranged it, I took a photo with my phone. I have talked about this before. I've also mentioned that I will do things like this and then I forget about it. Like, I'll take the photo and then I don't reference the photo, or I just get distracted. However, I did my arrangement, took the photo with my phone, and off, you can't see it on camera, but off camera, I have my phone sitting beside me and I'm referencing that photo because I was like, oh, this arrangement is like so good. I really like it. So I'm just following that and adhering everything. So I adhered the heart to the embossed background, just using craft tacky glue, and then doing the same thing with all these little elements. So I adhered my leaves, I trimmed one of them off, and then going along and adhering these little florals and just kind of tucking them in around the edge of this heart die cut. And once I kind of get everything in place, the final little flower, I'm going to stick a little foam square under that because I've got all these layers of cardstock, so there's a bit of dimension here. So once I get this last little red flower in place, this one, I was like, it's just easier to stick a little foam square under there. So it's a little thin foam square, pop that into place, and then baker's twine, of course. Like, I go in phases with all the things, and the last however long, it's been the baker's twine phase again. I love it. It just adds that little extra something. So kind of tucked it underneath the little cluster here, wrapped it around the card front a couple times, and then, as always, reverse tweezers are your friend for anything, even if you're not going to get into, you know, ribbon and baker's twine, that kind of stuff. Reverse tweezers just come in handy. So use that to hold the knot, tied my little bow, got it the way I wanted it, and then trimmed off the excess on the tails, and then ended up using that last little leaf piece and that tiny little flower. I was like, I can fit these in. I'll just tuck them in here and there just to finish it all off. So got those into place. And then this little misuse sentiment is from the Greetings Trio die set. It does have an outline as well, but I didn't use the outline. I used just the words. And same thing, die cut those from just scraps of white cardstock, stacking those together with my craft tacky glue, because dimension is life, as always, and it just looks better in my opinion. So stack those together. So I've got 3 layers of the white cardstock, and then I'm going to adhere that onto this little heart as well. That's also why I didn't want the outline, because I was like, it just stands out nicely on its own. So I'm going to adhere that. And then the little dots to the eye, I managed not to lose, because that's usually what happens as well. But adhere those separately, just in place. So little tiny dab of glue, stick on the dot, and then just stack that up together. And then, of course, splatter. I got a recent order, and I'd ordered this. This is Aqua Splash White from Brutus Monroe. And it's subtle. I did shake it up really well. I'm going to play with it some more. It ends up drawing back quite a bit. I'm fine with that, honestly. I didn't want like stark white, like splatter everywhere, but it gave just a nice little bit of texture. So I just shook it up, stuck a little bit onto my glasswork surface. I'm just using a little paintbrush because, again, I didn't need a ton of splatter, so I didn't get my fan brush out, because you guys know, fan brush, 3 different types of splatter, cover all the things. Sometimes, you know, it's fun to pare it back a little bit, but then usually it just means that the next time I go hard and I'll do like 5 million things and add like 2 pounds of glitter to it, you know? It's all good. Anyway, did all that, set it aside to dry. I cut down just a piece of thinner white cardstock to go on the inside of my card. And I pulled out, again, another oldie but goodie that I use a lot, the Spring in My Step stamp set, and specifically this big Paper Hug Sentiment. You can tell it's stained. I use it a lot. I lined that up, used that in my Misty, and I stamped that with that Latte ink. And then my card base is the same red cardstock, and it's A2 top folding cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I scored that at 5 1/2, reinforced the fold with my bone folder, and then I can adhere that panel that I stamped onto the inside of the card. And yeah, I trimmed down this panel as well so that the card base kind of frames that. So it gives it just that nice little extra something. So got that adhered into place. And then to adhere the card front, I'm going to pop this up with a little bit of Simon's Big Mama foam tape. That'll give it a little bit extra dimension. Plus it just makes it lay flatter in a sense because of the baker's twine, you know, because it kind of gets in the way. So put that on the back of this card front. And then I'm going to pop this onto the card base. Could technically leave it here, but then I was like, there's other ways you can also like zhuzh up your die cut. So first, added a little bit of bling because it's sitting. I don't even bother putting these away anymore. I've used these in a ton of recent videos. These are just the sparkling clear confetti from Pretty Pink Posh. So I stuck a few of these around my little arrangement, and then I pulled out my white gel pen. This is another way to kind of zhuzh up just die cut elements. You know, ink blending is one way, adding little details with white gel pens, you know, little dots, little lines, things like that. And then, yeah, you could also do, I've shown a ton, like ink smushing, alcohol markers. Like there's so many ways to dress up die cuts, you know, so they're not just flat cardstock. So I went around and just used my white gel pen and just added just little lines, little highlights, not following any sort like light source or anything. Just stuck them wherever I thought, you know, they would look nice. So around the flower centers, the edges of the petals, the leaves, that sort of a thing. And once I was happy with it, this card is complete. So we've got some texture, a little bit of bling, a little bit of splatter. This is my version of clean and simple. So yeah, like I said in the intro, I'll have a link to the Color Throwdown Challenge in my blog post, which is linked directly below the video. Just expand the description box and I'll have all the info, the supply list. I'll list and link everything I used. So anyone who's interested, you can just check that out below. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting. It really does help and I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.